any reason, which Lane Johnson did announce on the Gun and One podcast with Derek Gunn this week that he is planning to play this coming Sunday. So that's great news. But if for some reason he did mention that Jack Driscoll would be the starting right tackle, which it brings up another point I would say that we brought up on Sunday on both of our post-game shows is, where did Matt Pryor get lost in the shuffle and all this? I would say, and with the lack of offensive depth at offensive line, and I would say Herbig, I would say he did decent, but I would say he didn't stand out, but he wasn't a guy that you're like, oh, great. I would say there's that one play, I think he missed a block inside. He took the safety blitz instead of taking Ryan Kerrigan, and Ryan Kerrigan broke it in free untouched. I think that's the only big play that I remember seeing. But overall, I would say he played well. But they're one injury away from having a complete disaster. And right now they already allowed 8 sacks last week when they had to face Aaron Donald, arguably not only the best defensive or best defensive tackle in the league, but possibly the greatest defensive player in the league.
Yeah, I mean, the one guy I want to say, we keep talking about Herbig, we talk about Jack Driscoll, we talk about how bad Peters and Kelsey played really
he got blown up.
A bad game. I don't know where the grades fell on him. I didn't look that up. But you know who the guy I've trashed all offseason and said the experiment's over, Jordan Mailata did not play that bad. He played 18 snaps. And I watched all 18 snaps 2 or 3 times. Like there were some highlight clips of that and all. And there's only 2 of those 18 snaps that he really looked lost on, that he got blown up on. One of them was one of the screen plays, and another one he did give up one of the sacks to Carson Wentz. But I mean, he actually kind of impressed. It's kind of weird to look back with the fact that you got Jason Kelsey, one of the greatest of all time at center, Jason Peters, one of the greatest at left tackle of all time. You got both of them on your line, and we're talking that they didn't perform up to the level of Jordan Mailata. That's pretty concerning and pretty scary looking forward as we're facing Aaron Donald next week.
Well, not just Aaron Donald. It's Michael Brockers isn't that bad, and even
everybody
Leonard
talks about Aaron Donald. That's your number one go-to guy there.
That, and I'll say a lot of those guys are decent, but like Phil said, they're no Aaron Donald, and Aaron Donald makes the rest of that defensive line and that front seven better. So having him on the field, which surprisingly, I would say there's stats released this week, and he surprisingly doesn't have a great track record against the Philadelphia Eagles in 3 starts. He doesn't even have a sack against us. So that's probably going to change this week, unfortunately.
So one thing, I know we're going to get into all the press conferences and stuff in a moment, but the one thing that was asked of Doug that was an issue potentially with all the young offensive linemen is communication, and the fact and Doug Peterson talked about how Aaron Donald bounces around the line. So we really have to worry about Kelsey and these young guys and their communication on where Aaron Donald is at all times and who's picking up the blocking and who's double teaming, who's chipping him if he's on the edge and stuff. So it's something that definitely needs to be concerned about there.
And I'll say, speaking of that, I'll say we can play the audio from Doug Peterson's press conference today, him talking about Aaron Donald.
Tremendous player. And, there's not many offensive lines out there that really kind of slow this guy down. I mean, he just he goes from snap to whistle. He's 100 miles an hour, and and that's tough for us. It's about understanding where he aligns up, and he does move. It's a different scheme. It's not the same Wade Phillips scheme. It's a different scheme. So they move him around the D line just a little bit more. So it's going to be imperative that we understand where he's at, and communication is of the utmost, obviously, and it starts with Kelsey and echoes along the offensive line. So we just have to be aware of where he's at.
Yeah, basically what I said there. They definitely need to work on that communication. Kelsey cannot have a bad game with Aaron Donald. I mean, it was one thing with Washington. I know Washington's front 7 is really good, but no one on that front 7 is anywhere near to the level. Aaron Donald might be the best defensive player in the league right now, if not one of the 2 or 3 best in the league right now. So that communication level, that performance from that line needs to be 10 times better, if not 20 times better, Sunday against the Rams.
Well, and not just the offensive line. I would say you have to talk about the offense and Doug Peterson as a whole. And that's Doug Peterson's job. Going into this week, for a game plan, he needs to come away to neutralize and eliminate Aaron Donald from that football game, because I'll say the St. Louis or Los Angeles Rams, their defense, they didn't play tremendously great against the Dallas Cowboys this past week. They gave up 380 total yards of offense, 136 on the ground, 244 in the passing game. So I'll say Doug Peterson's got to find a way. He's got to eliminate this whole deep ball on every single play because it was not working against Washington, and definitely not going to work against the Rams this week. He needs to find a way to get the run game involved, and I would say hopefully Miles Sanders coming back. Hopefully this offensive line can perform well, and we'll dive into that in a little bit. But I would say he's got to find a way to take Aaron Donald out of the game.
Yeah, and that's something we'll definitely get into because there's a couple of points that I want to bring up in that. But, to touch on the injury front, so Vinny Curry goes on the IR. He has a significant hamstring injury, so who knows how long our guy Craig James is going to be out for
which is unfortunately why he is not going to be
on. Unfortunately, we were supposed to have Craig James on tonight, but the rule,
with the injury, we can't have him on. But he is also on IR, so they also activated or elevated Sua Opeta to the active roster, and then they signed off the Bears practice squad veteran Jamon Brown, who started 47 games in the NFL. So it's not like it's a practice squad player because one of those veteran exemption practice squad players. So he's been around the NFL, and Doug even mentioned and talked about how he may need a week or so to get the terminology down and everything, but he's a veteran to have back there.
We were going to talk about it a bunch of times that Doug Peterson was very snarky and very disgruntled today, and I wrote it down. He was asked about him being here. Will he be ready? Yes. That's it. That's all he said. Yes. And then someone tried to follow up. Well, what does that mean? He said, we'll give him 2 or 3 days. He'll be fine.
He'll be fine.
And they just stared off into the screen. Come on, that was Dougie at his finest right there.
Well, I know we keep on saying that Dougie P's not on the hot seat, but I'll say from his responses and the way he's been acting, and after losing Sunday's game to the Washington football team, in the fashion that they did, up 17 points, and have become a complete disaster and lose that football game, I don't blame him for being snarky. I'll say it was a lot of it's on him, a lot of it's on the players, and I'm sure he's hearing from Howie and management right now. So Jeff McLean's article that came out last week about power struggle, I honestly think it's true. And seeing the way he is acting and the way that his offense ran this past week, maybe Howie Roseman has a point. I'll say the article reported that that Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie went to Doug and basically said to him that his offense is a little bit stale. Maybe the West Coast style that he runs and the way he runs the offense, there might be a change, which might be the reasoning why they drafted Jalen Hurts in the second round this past draft. Which is another point. I'll say we keep on talking about the lack of depth that this football team has. They drafted possibly the future starting quarterback in the second round that's going to sit on the bench who wasn't even active. They drafted a linebacker in the third round who's not even starting or seeing the football field. Why didn't they address the offensive line in either one of those picks? I'll say in the past couple of years, the offensive line picks that they have addressed was Maliata in the 7th round, and I forget who the other one in that pick, but they really haven't addressed the offensive line in the draft in the past couple of years, and it's really showing to hurt them. They're bringing back 38+ offensive linemen to come start for your team.
Let's back that off a little bit on the addressing the offensive line, because how could you have known that 2 of your 5 starting offensive linemen that were written down on paper at the start of the year were going to go down before the start of the year? Andre Dillard, we could debate whether he was ready for that role or not, but Brandon Brooks is probably the best at his position, and he went down. Maybe back late in the year, probably not. We might be a little homer and over-optimistic saying that he might be back, but you can't lose 2/5 of your starting offensive line before the start of the season and expect everything to just be hunky-dory on the offensive line.
But then also losing your starting right tackle at the beginning of the year. So basically now you don't have 3/5 of your starting offensive line.
60% of your offensive line was not there for week 1.
I get that, but I would say like they say, next man up. I would say I understand you never want a guy of those caliber to go out and get injured. But remember that Super Bowl year, they lost JP. We all thought we were gone. And Vitae, they had a quality backup offensive lineman that came in, performed at a high level, and they ended up winning a Super Bowl with him. So that I'm not saying that
it's a good point.
I'm not saying that I would say that these guys are going to play to the caliber, and I would say you didn't, and of course you didn't expect these guys to get hurt. You still have to have quality depth and quality backup, which is what Howie has lacked over the years and providing for this football team. That's the whole point I'm trying to get at. But I would say we have a little bit more problems than just the offensive line. I would say the offense as a whole needs to get clicking together. I would say Carson Wentz arguably had his worst game as a starter in the NFL this past Sunday against a horrible football team. And I would say, I hate to say this, and we'll dive a little bit more into it a little bit, but this Sunday's game is a must-win football game. I would say as much as hey, I know you're giving me the look, Phil, but
no, I agree with you. More so that it's pathetic to think
it's a
must-win game, but it's because the later half of our schedule is so difficult. We all expected 3-1, 4-1 the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season because this was our easy part of the schedule. Washington was supposed to be an easy win, and that's where it comes back on Doug Peterson more so than Carson Wentz. He did not have this team ready to play Week 1. He let the team overlook their Week 1 opponent. So hopefully they fix that this week. Hopefully he's got them motivated. Hopefully how pissed off he looks in his press conferences translates to the way he treats the team this week, and he's got these guys ready to play against the Rams.
And Carson Wentz was asked today in his press conference about the offensive woes of the Eagles this past Sunday and how he needs to improve this for going on the rest of the season.
You've had some time to look over what happened Sunday and maybe come to some conclusions about it. What was the problem? Why couldn't you get things back on track after they kind of went awry in the second half?
Yeah, culmination of things. We talked about, we came out swinging and we started fast, but, we had, obviously the turnovers really hurt us. I got to do a better job protecting the ball. We had a lot of negative plays on first down and put us in really tough situations. We had way too many third and really extra longs. And so just negative plays really affected us. And that was, everyone across the board it wasn't a lot of physical mistakes as much as just communication and some breakdowns that we got to get situated. And like I said earlier, I got to take better care of the ball, get rid of the ball. And, I'm looking forward to bouncing back personally. I know this offense is as well.
Hey, Carson, your 2 interceptions in the first game were to your young receivers who were in their first action. And yesterday, Jalen said he could do a better job fighting for the ball. And then he said on the deep ball miss, he said he's slowed down. You didn't have any preseason games with these guys. How do you get the chemistry better or going with your rookie receivers?
Yeah, I have nothing but confidence in those guys. I got to make better throws first and foremost. Those guys are out there competing their butts off. Jalen is a guy that, a lot of respect for, a lot of excitement for him, right now and for, hopefully a long career together. But you just got to get the chemistry as much as you can on the grass. And so it's the routes on air. It's taking advantage, after practice or during, special teams drills and practice and those sorts of things. And so, and a lot of it, that you don't have the physical time on the field, it's just talking to them, understand, hey, this is what I saw. What are you seeing? And just understanding how we each see the game. And, I think those reps on the field from last game are going to be extremely valuable for him, for Hightower, for some of these young guys to continue to learn from and grow. And, I'm expecting big things as an offense and with those guys especially.
Yeah.
Okay, but the one thing I would say, I love how he says he needs to learn to throw the ball away. We've been hearing that for freaking 4 years now. We're going in the 5th year of playing with Carson Wentz as quarterback. It's like the whole thing. And everyone saying, well, why is it the coaching telling him to do this? Why aren't they teaching him? It's the same thing with when Michael Vick was here. Why can't he slide? Why haven't they taught him to slide? I'll say it's just the way that this quarterback, he plays, and the way that he goes out, it's never going to change. I was saying, I think the Eagles' record when he has 3 turnovers or more is like 3 and like 10 or so, whatever the heck it is. It's a losing record.
That's not good.
But it's kind of like the same whole. When Brett Favre was running around just gunslinging and just throwing up in anything, whether it was double, triple coverage because he thinks he could get it in there, it's just the way some quarterbacks are, and it sucks because there was one instance on Sunday where the screen pass by Ryan Kerrigan was blown up. He saw it, throw it at the feet. No, he tried to run up. What happened last year when he did that? He got hit from behind from Jadeveon Clowney, and he got a concussion.
It was almost a mirror image type play there.
Well, yeah, he's playing scared. He's playing scared. And I was saying he didn't have one single throwaway on Sunday. Not one. I would say there was a stat I think that's been by Pro Football Focus since like 2000. They've been keeping track of it since 2017. And the 2 top quarterbacks that throw the most throwaways is Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady. There's a reason why those guys are as durable as they are, and that they're playing consistently. And Brady's playing into his 40s because he's not getting hit constantly, especially knowing that your offensive line and protection is breaking down. But again, that's all on Dougie P. Dougie P, once again, he needs to learn to have those 3-step drops in his offense, and not these. Knowing that your offensive line protection is breaking down, you're not going to be able to have the deep ball game with Deshaun Jackson and Jalen Reagor. Unfortunately, you need to keep opposing defenses honest and have a running game. The fact that 12 of their first 15 plays on Sunday were passing plays, granted, they scored points on those drives, which was efficient, but I would say Dougie P has shown that he's really aggressive, and he lives by the pass and dies by the pass, and that's unfortunately what happened Sunday. And in a must-win football game, he needs to keep them balanced. He needs, with Miles Sanders back,
Yeah, that's the thing. Miles Sanders wasn't there. Miles Sanders is where the game plan is centered around of this team. Miles Sanders should be touching the ball 20, 25 times between the rushing, the receiving out of the backfield.
But the offensive line ain't opening holes up front. Right. It's not going to matter who's
it's different. It's not just –
look at Barkley.
It's the fact that the game plan is centered around these guys.
I agree.
That the backup – again, it's to the depth of this team. That Boston Scott and Corey Clement, yeah, they're nice complementary running backs, but they're not guys that could step up and fill that. Do you really think Boston Scott could touch the ball 25 times a game?
No.
Not even close. Corey Clement probably shouldn't touch the ball 10 times a game.
And it isn't even touching the ball, how many touches they get, everything. It's about the pickups, the blitz pickups. There was one where the guy came straight up the middle, and Boston Scott went to go run a route, and it's like the Red Sea. It opened up and hit Carson, and
well,
that's something Miles Sanders does really well.
There's another thing with the Miles Sanders thing that I want to talk about, and Doug talked about it in his presser. So did Carson. Everybody's talked about it on social media. Is that we've all said, why didn't Carson roll to the right or roll to the left? Why weren't there designed role plays? And Doug commented that it was because of the flow of the offense, because they were at 2nd and long and 3rd and long so frequently. But that's where having a running back like Miles Sanders, when you're handing off or trying to run a play with Boston Scott in the backfield on 1st down, you're setting yourself up for failure on 2nd and 3rd down. Now, I know I've been against Devontae Freeman, but that's where having a Carlos Hyde or a Devontae Freeman as a veteran running back might have been a better option than running out Boston Scott as your starter, because every single drive, every single play, it's 2nd down and 7, 3rd down and 13. You can't win with that. And that's where losing Miles Sanders hurts there.
It hurts, but I'll say I didn't buy too much into what Dougie P said. So I'll say we'll play what Doug Peterson had to say about his play calling in regards to Carson Wentz's play design.
Hey, Doug. Carson was dealing with a lower body injury before the start of the regular season. I was curious if that impacted your play calling at all in terms of moving him outside the pocket.
No.
Go ahead, Brandon.
To follow up on that, Doug, why then didn't we see Carson Wentz moved out as much? I mean, he had a lot of success seemingly doing that at the end of last year. And going back and watching in week 1, it didn't seem like he really was out of the pocket as much. Is that something we can expect to see moving forward?
Yeah. I'd love to be able to sit down and kind of maybe show you guys game film and study the tape and talk about scheme and all that kind of stuff. And there's opportunity. Carson's a great out of the pocket thrower. We understand that. Excuse me. But when we have 13 snaps that are second down and 7+, we didn't do a very good job on first down, whether we're running or passing the football, and so, utilizing an out of the pocket throw, a movement type throw when it's 2nd and 13, I don't know, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but I think you have to, push the ball differently down the field, drop back, play action, whatever it might be, screen, but you just can't listen. Everything we do, obviously it starts with first down. And if you're not positive on first down, now it affects what you do on second down. And then obviously then it affects you on third or fourth down. So I would love to, have Carson out of the pocket more. He is dynamic outside the pocket, great vision and all of that. But again, we've got to do a better job on first down in order for a lot of those plays to take place.
What on earth is he even freaking talking about?
Dude, that totally explains so much, because when I was taking my notes for this episode, I was watching all the interviews, and I wrote down the word "no" under Doug's press conference, but no notes next to it.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember why I wrote the word "no" down. That video explained it all right there.
I would say he's talking out of his ass. I would say he made no freaking sense on that when he answered that question. He was basically just going around in circles and saying, "Well, I'm not going to roll him out because we didn't pick enough on first and it affects second and third." What the hell does not pick up on first down have anything to do with anything?
Why not roll out on first down?
It's his play calling. If he wants Carson to roll out, why isn't he freaking calling it? And I'm saying, of course, no one's going to bite the freaking play action fake. I was saying, how often he was doing play action in that game? Of course, no one's biting it. You passed 70% of the time compared to the 30% runs, if that. You're not keeping defenses on it. Of course, they're going to play up at the line of scrimmage because everyone knows that. I would say what you're going to try to do. I don't know. I just felt that he doesn't know what he's talking about.
He's frustrated.
Yeah, the problem is it just seems like the offense is way too vanilla, and
it's more than vanilla.
More and more question, and more I think about it. How much influence did Frank Reich have? If you really think about it,
how great did Frank Reich do last week? He lost to Gardner Minshew and the Jaguars, so I'm not buying that aspect of it. I'm buying more of the front office. Issues with Doug, the fact that he wanted to keep certain guys and then he had to backtrack on those statements. That's more of that. He just looks unhappy. And if you watch any of those videos that we've played, or if you watch the whole press conference, he's got this sourpuss look on his face that just shows that he is not mentally in the right state right now.
He's becoming Andy Reid towards the end of his tenure. I would say
we're only 4 years into his tenure.
Well, that's the problem. And honestly, it's something we can discuss on a later show, but either I think Dougie P's gone, not either after next year, or Carson's gone. One of the two is going to be gone eventually, unless they.
What about Howie? You think Howie's really that safe?
Howie's staying. I honestly feel. I would say Howie, I think, is safer now, just for the fact I would say he's done so much. He's made moves in the past that I think has helped. And granted, Doug's won us a Super Bowl with his aggressive style, but now his aggressive style is costing us football games. Like in Sunday, 4th and 3, the go for it on barely at midfield when you're only down 7 points with 3 timeouts, when your defense is playing extremely well. The only reason they gave up 27 points is because your crappy offense put them in a bad situation with a short field. And your quarterback forcing freaking turnovers and throws. So, of course, your defense is going to look bad giving up 27 points. But it wasn't their fault. It was freaking Dougie Pease and Carson Wentz.
Yeah, I understand that. But if you think about it and how he builds the team. Now, Doug has gotten into the playoffs the last 3 seasons. And how he builds this team.
Division. We made it
the playoffs.
We made it 9-7, and after this game, I would say if they lose this football game, regardless of the extra playoff spot, they probably don't make the playoffs. That's the same thing that happened with Andy Reid. Andy Reid, again, he made the playoffs. They brought him back. They went 8-8. They brought him back because they won the last 4 games. They missed the playoffs. They freaking canned him. Granted, it's a little bit different situation. Andy was here for 15 or however many long years, but just with the power struggle and Doug Peterson being salty and not willing to change his offensive philosophy, he was snarky in his press conference about that he's not going to let off the gas or in this league being up 17 points. I get being aggressive, but you have to be smart too. And him being a freaking moron has cost them a football game on Sunday. That and the lack of execution from your quarterback and your offense.
Yeah, but
I just want to real quick. I want to jump on and notice that we're not getting our comments on the screen. So I'm catching a lot of them on Facebook right now. I'm trying to read down. I'm checking in and I'm reading them all right now. So we're sorry if we haven't put your comments and questions up on the screen. I'm going to try to get to some of them as we go here, but give me a few minutes and I'll get through them and bring them up as we can.
I'll say this is All About the Birds, our live show previewing the Rams-Eagles game for this Sunday's matchup. Jeff, Phil, Johnny, thank you for tuning in. We'll take a quick time out, and we'll be back right after this.
Second down and 10. Wentz keeps it. Over the middle. Pass caught by Aguilar. To the 25, and a spin move down to the 20. Against Seattle, he gets 18 here.
Well, good protection up front with Stefan Wisniewski, and he's got Aaron Donald, not an easy matchup, and Nelson Aguilar, what a year he has had. He just ran in one heck of a route against man coverage.
Pass over the middle. It is caught for the touchdown. That's Trey Burton. Boy, he was well covered, and Carson Wentz just threw a beautiful pass for the touchdown.
They have the perfect route called as the defender there jumps to the outside. John Johnson, Ogletree trying to get underneath it. He's never able to even get turned around to see if the ball is in flight. And Carson Wentz.
So, that game brings up a lot of memories, being that's the 2017 game. And when he...
Where's that Carson Wentz? Where's the guy
where's that Nelson Aguilar?
Hey, he had a touchdown catch in his greatest debut.
Touchdowns.
Hey, he has more touchdowns than any of our wide receivers right now this season. So
I'm going through some of the comments. I was shout out to Travis, one of our good fans, loves us, listens to all our episodes. He was checking in and saying, "What's up?" Obviously your wives are always checking in. Tori checking in. Lauren, my friend Lauren, going on vacation next week with her. She thinks I'm putting in for vacation time. She has no idea that we're doing this from the Outer Banks next week. Devin Winters from the Athlete Hub, who shares all our shows, wants to know how important week 2 is. We already touched on that. It's a must-win week 2 when you got the Bengals week 3, but after that, the schedule gets so tough.
Well, that and just the tiebreakers, I would say, for them to drop 0-2 in the conference, 0-1 the division. The Rams are potentially on the bubble of a playoff team for most people this season, and for them to go 2-0, you already lose the tiebreaker with them. It has major impact on the Eagles season whether they make the playoffs or not. And I'll say the history of teams going 0-2 and making the playoffs, granted there is an extra playoff spot now, but it's still not good. The numbers are not that great. I understand everyone's bringing up that the Eagles went 0-2 in 2003 when they lost to the Bucks and the Patriots back-to-back games, but those are completely two different football teams. That was the defending Super Bowl champions coming out in their first game, and then also the eventual Super Bowl champions with Tom Brady and the Patriots. So they lost to an inferior Washington football team and a Rams team that, on paper, they match up pretty well. The Eagles have had the Rams number for the most part over the last couple of seasons. And, of course, Carson Wentz usually has some of his best games against the Rams. It's not like their defense is that scary. So if our offense struggles this week, especially our offensive line against Aaron Donald, it's going to be a long day. And we're not going to be talking about victory on Sunday if that's the case.
My thing is, you look at the schedule. Yeah, if you start 0-2, it's going to be a hard hill to climb. But how I look at it this year, it's just so out of the ordinary because one, you don't know who's going to be hurt. All the injuries that are popping up, all these teams that are depleted. There's been a bunch of players going on IR, even with the Eagles too. But being 0-2, I'm not going to say it's a so-called death sentence, but it's not going to be easy to climb out of. It is a game you kind of want to win because it's expected that they win the first 3 games that they can get 3-0 because LA traveling from the West Coast to the East Coast.
I don't buy much.
It's not, yeah, but it's they're going to be starting at 1:00, so basically 10:00 their time, and it's not like other years.
These guys are practicing at 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. I'll say, yeah, it's they're gonna have a little jet lag, but it's not like it's gonna affect them. I don't buy that too much unless it's for some reason like a short week, like on a Monday, they didn't have as much practice or like installed the game plan. But they played on Sunday. They're playing a Sunday this week. They were at home, so I don't know. I don't buy so much of that traveling. I would say possibly the next game because they have to travel back west to travel back east when I think they face the Bills in week 3. So I would say week 3 might be a letdown game for them against Buffalo. With the whole traveling situation, but this is a huge game for the Philadelphia Eagles. Unfortunately, I understand. I understand you don't want to give in right away after week 2 and throw in the towel, but you almost have to. I'll say these are, like we said, these are teams that they probably should be or at least contend against. Now, if they lose by a field goal or something, okay, I'll feel a little bit better. But if they lose to the fashion that they did against Washington, where they had a huge lead and plummeted and just let it go, then you have to cause concerns because this team has shown they can't finish the job and they can't put in 4 quarters of football, which is concerning. And that separates, like Ray Didinger said. I love R. Diddy a lot. He brought it up best. He said,
got his autographed book right there.
Teams are supposed to win. There you go. I'll say he says good teams are supposed to beat teams are supposed to beat. If the Eagles don't win this, they lost on Sunday. If they don't win this Sunday, a team that they're probably supposed to be or at least contend well against, they're not a good football team then. I understand Phil had them in the Super Bowl. You guys have them in the playoffs, which I did too. Spot. But if they lose this game, you can probably throw all that out the window, unfortunately.
But the thing is, if Jeff, I understand, how you feel with it if they lose, and my biggest thing is if they're up 17 points early again and you blow that, you have bigger issues than they can't finish games. You have bigger issues all along, basically the coaching staff and the players not doing what they should be doing. It's a bigger issue if they're up 17 points again, because you just don't blow 17-point leads like that in multiple weeks. There'd be an absolute, I don't know, Philly may burn because of that. But
let's take that into what is the keys to victory. If we are going to win this game, what are the top keys?
If you want to give, we'll each give one key. My key to the game is the run game, and especially if Miles Sanders and Lane Johnson is playing. So I understand that Dallas had 130. They had 130 plus rush yards against the Rams. Now, the Rams' run defense is not that great. Aaron Donald is great against the pass, but he's not the strongest against the run. And their middle linebackers, their middle of their defense, Corey Littleton went to Vegas. He was their best inside linebacker. So they have Micah Kaiser and Troy Reeder as their middle backers. And their run defense as a whole isn't the greatest. So I think that's something the Eagles can do. And Eagles like to do that with the time of possession, controlling the clock, controlling the game. So that's one of my keys. Is if they can get the run game going, it's going to set everything else up. They have
to call run plays. They have to actually call run plays. And Miles Sanders has to actually play. Otherwise, that key to the game is going to be a big L, because there's no way that they're going to be successful in that aspect of the game with Boston Scott and Corey Clement as their only 2 guys.
If Miles Sanders isn't in the game and it's Corey Clement and Boston Scott and Jason Huntley and they don't call anybody up, it's that I feel it's going to be a lot tougher, because if you have Miles Sanders, you can do so much more, plus the whole pass blocking. But to be able to run the ball with Miles Sanders, I think they could gouge that defense, which could help them control the clock, but also it would help them control the pass rush. But what are your guys' keys?
Jeff?
Mine Mine's somewhat a little bit off Johnny's. I would say not so much the run game pointing essentially to the run game, but they have to have a balanced offensive attack. Like you keep on saying, last week I would say them to throw at 50-something plays and have 42 passes to like 13 rushes or 17 rushes, whatever it was. You can't have an unbalanced attack. I would say you're becoming too predictable of an offense. You have to keep them on edge. You have to keep the opposing defensive honest, and you have to show a defense that you're willing to run the ball. Otherwise, that play action crap that Doug was throwing in last week, it's not going to work. No one's going to fall for the deep rush or the deep throw down the field to Rager or Deshaun Jackson. I would say they're playing a lot of cover two, and I would say they have to install when it comes to their passing game. They have to have these quick 3-step drops. They need to neutralize Aaron Donald, neutralize that pass rush, and chip away. That's something they did in those first 2 drives. They were able to chip away, dump it off to the tight ends, dump it off underneath in a slant route, 5-10 yards here and there, pick up the first down, and move the football. I was say they were getting too many situations where they're in too many 2nd and 3rd and longs because they're trying to throw the ball and it's an incomplete pass or whatever the play design, whatever the issue was. They need to get in some type of rhythm, install a balanced offense, and attack the Rams defense by running the ball and the short passing game.
Yeah, I'm gonna go a completely different direction there on the key to the game. I mean, we could talk about the run. We could talk about the offensive line. We could talk about Darius Slay versus Cooper Kupp. We could talk about so many different things. But I watched 3 press conferences, Doug Peterson's in its entirety, Carson Wentz, and Jim Schwartz. And all 3 of them said one key word, which was lacking in week 1, that they need in week 2, all for the same word for different reasons. And the word was communication. Okay? Yep. You know, Carson Wentz said the turnovers were because of communication issues. Doug Peterson said the communication issue on the offensive line needs to be worked out because they have to communicate where Aaron Donald is and who's picking up the plays. But on the defensive end is where I really want to make as the key, because I think we learned that Darius Slay is as advertised, right? You know, he locked down Terry McLaurin. He gave up that one really big slant play, but outside of that the key on defense with communication is because the Rams, they do something that a lot of teams do that the Washington didn't do much of. It's Jim Schwartz used the word eyewash. They run a lot of dipsy-doos and a lot of trickery stuff, which is really nothing, though. It's just a lot of this and that to run a play up the middle. So the communication on defense so that they don't get confused and give up these big plays is a key. So communication on offense, communication on defense, it's going to be a big deal. And on a team that's supposed to be better than the Washington football team, it's going to be made to look that much more important if they cannot communicate properly on all these aspects and all.
But and the one thing that the Rams do is they do a lot of crossing routes, which the communication is going to be really big in terms, if guys are coming across.
They're basic routes. Sure. It's not like they run fancy routes.
No,
they do a lot of fluff. Like fluff and, confusing stuff.
Well, that's
just a basic crossing pattern. So it's communicating on defense so that you don't get confused by that, whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to term it. The eyewash is what Jim Schwartz called it.
The touchdown, the Logan Thomas touchdown was communication right there between Maddox and Mills. So,
but he did not say who, because Jim Schwartz, as he put it on his presser, said, "I will never throw anybody under the bus. It's on the whole defense when there's a communication issue."
Which the defense played really well.
They're ranked the first-ranked defense right now as far as yardage. So
yeah, but they gave up 27 points.
Well, I would say a lot of that was on them. I would say it was the offense. I would say putting them in short field. Granted, they probably shouldn't give up touchdowns. That's the one downfall to the defense, which I'll give them. I'll say
where's the bend don't break defense?
It wasn't there. I would say the one time they did, and Washington missed the field goal.
Yeah, exactly. So you can blame the offense for the defense's struggles for the short field, but the defense then, sometimes a game needs to be won by that defense. The defense needed to step up and shut that team down. So, I don't want to let the defense off the hook for last week's game. So they need to be better. Last week, who did we go up against? Terry McLaurin and Dwayne Haskins. Could you even, before breaking down the Redskins game or the Washington football team's game, did you even know who their running backs were if you weren't looking at a screen? They didn't have an offense. The Rams, they've got a stacked team. You can name half their offense. That performance won't work against the Rams.
The only reason I know a lot of the players because I print the depth charts and I look at them. Otherwise,
you're a dork.
I know. It's what I like to do. So, but the thing is, also we didn't mention that Brandon Graham's in concussion protocol. So, if the depth is going to be key. Yeah, and Josh Sweat had they showed, I guess there was a metrics on it. He had 2.3 seconds, the fastest sack of anybody in week 1. So,
I'll say defensively, I'll say that they have a tough challenge. I know the Rams aren't that good of a football team, but I was say Vontae Maddox overall played a decent game last week. So, and Darius Slay played a great game shutting down McLaurin, who was basically a non-factor for the most part, besides a couple first downs. But they had to go up against Robert Woods. They had to go up against Cooper Kupp. So, two big, speedy receivers that this secondary is going to have to struggle. Or really have to contain. And I'll say it's going to rely on that pass rush. That pass rush is going to have to get to Jared Goff and rattle him a bit so he can't get these passes off or allow the deep ball to these guys down the field. So, and I'll say, luckily, Nicole Roby-Coleman, I'll say he's played for the Rams. So I'll say he has a little bit of familiarity against Jared Goff. Hopefully he can instill that knowledge to the rest of the defense and that secondary on some insight that he has from playing with them and going up against Cooper Kupp and some of these receivers.
Jim Schwartz was actually asked about Coleman and his familiarity, and he said that that's not as big of a deal as we all, as fans and reporters and all the people that ask those questions think, because once training camp starts, things change so much from year to year that there's not as much of a, there's a familiarity with how Kupp likes to do certain things, or a certain wide receiver might break a route. But the plays themselves and the calls themselves change so much from year to year. He made sure to point out that that's really not giving them an advantage.
And see, I guess that's true. But like if you get a guy in season, maybe it's a little bit different. But my one question is, with James not there, are they going to promote, Trevor Williams or Grayland Arnold from the practice squad? And I saw that they protected Deontay Burnett, Osman, T.Y. McGill, and Trevor Williams. They're protecting guys, but they also can bring up 2 other guys. I don't know if they bring up the guys they're protecting. I don't know if that.
I see ends getting brought up for this game. Whether it's McGill, whether it's Osman, whether it's Casey Toohill, it's going to be. I see them bringing up 2 ends, especially if Miles Sanders plays. It's going to be 2 ends that they bring up, in my opinion.
Yeah, especially with them signing Apeta from the practice squad and signing Jamon Brown, they're not going to need to bring up any more offensive linemen. So definitely an end, because if Brandon Graham isn't 100% with the concussion, and of course Vinny Curry's out, and can you really rely on Jannard Avery? Because the Rams' offensive line looked pretty darn good on Sunday night. They were and Dallas's defensive line is not a pushover. They have some talent there. So that's one thing you're going to have to watch for. I don't know if you guys want to get into the matchups, kind of some of the key matchups to kind of look forward to. I know we did the keys to the game, but some matchups you're looking forward to watching on Sunday, or for fans to keep an eye on.
No, sorry.
Because
I already said it. My keys to the game were same as matchups. I wrote down Slay against Cooper Kupp. I mean, it'd be great to see him. Okay. I mean, Terry McLaurin had some really good games last year, but most of his good games were against the Eagles. So seeing a top 5, top 10 wide receiver, against Darius Slay, it'll be fun to watch. But outside of, Kupp and the Aaron Donald versus the offensive line, they're my 2 main areas that I'm looking at.
which were two that I mentioned in my article for AATBirds.com today. The other one, the one that I didn't mention that is something to keep an eye on is if Lane Johnson's healthy, Lane Johnson versus Leonard Floyd, who came over from Chicago and is basically one of their main edge rushers and is a speed rusher. So with Johnson and the ankle, only being, I think, 2.5 weeks or almost 3 weeks since he's had ankle surgery, being able to get out there quick for a guy who's a big speed rusher is going to be real key to watch and kind of see how they go about that. Do they chip? Do they help him a little bit, or do they help JP on the other side, or what they kind of do? Because like I think you guys mentioned, Aaron Donald lines up everywhere. I saw him on the left guard, the left tackle. He was on the right guard. He hit the center. So he's all over the place. And to me, Lane Johnson versus Leonard Floyd is a pretty big matchup to keep an eye on, especially if Lane's not fully 100%.
I'll say mine's a little cliche, and I would say it's somewhat similar to what I already mentioned as far as one of the keys to the game, but it's going to be the head coaching matchup. It's going to be Doug Peterson versus the Rams coach. Is it still Sean McVay?
Sean McVay, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It's still Sean McVay. And you really did a lot of prep for this game.
Hey, I couldn't remember if he got fired or not. Sorry. But I'll say after last week's performance, I'll say Doug Peterson.
He didn't wear his mask. He's been all over the news.
Oh, yeah, the NFL telling all the teams that if they don't follow protocol, they're going to get fined. And, of course, him and Mike McCarthy were wearing their mask on the sideline in Sunday Night Football.
Chucky, too.
Oh, yeah, Chucky, too. But I'll say
Chucky has his own set of rules.
After last week's performance, I'll say Doug Peterson really got outcoached by Ron Rivera, and I'll say this week he really needs to bounce back when it comes to his play calling and his decision making. I'll say ultimately he needs to be that leader and be that guy to tell his team what they're doing wrong and change on the fly and go out there and make sure he puts the players, the old cliche that Andy Reid would say, put his players in a better position to succeed. And ultimately it's true because last week he did it. The play calling that he had last week, they were doomed from the start. And like I said, he needs to instill some type of balanced attack and show that they're going to at least try to run the football. Whether it's successful or not, that's not the issue. It's whether I'll say that you're going to show the Rams defense that you're going to run and keep them honest, so they're not expecting the pass as often as they were last week when they played Washington. So that's somewhat my key or my matchup I'm going to be looking at is Doug Peterson's game plan and his play calling on Sunday.
So one thing I'll let Phil get into because he was a little happy with the All About the Birds Fantasy League. I wanted him to see him smiling. Let him get into a little bit of that.
All right, well, let's get into some fantasy talk here. Before we get to our Eagles-Rams predictions, final score predictions, let's talk fantasy.
We'll leave that last.
Yeah, we'll close with that. Let's talk fantasy. Let's talk gambling. Let's talk the odds. So first off, obviously, in the All About the Birds super deep 16-team fantasy league, Jeff and I both won our first week. So we're both 1-0. Johnny, unfortunately, the lowest ranked team in the league, did lose his first week. Big surprise.
Hey,
so
no Miles Sanders.
I'm sorry?
No Miles Sanders.
Yeah, well, if you didn't draft 3 quarterbacks, maybe you would have had a backup to play in place of Miles Sanders. So the first thing, before we get into daily fantasy, which is something I'm very passionate about, I want to look at the fantasy leagues. So I went on ESPN. We've pulled up all the top, free agents out there and names to look for. So I brought up a quarterback, a wide receiver, and a running back that are owned in very small percentage, 20% or less of leagues. So if you're playing daily fantasy, you need a wide receiver or you need a running back. These are the guys to look for. So for running back first, obviously Washington, they got rid of Adrian Peterson. There's a lot of question marks about their running game and all. So only owned in 13% of the leagues is Peyton Barber. Now, Peyton Barber had like 29 yards only against the Eagles. But the Eagles have one of the best run defenses in the league. He still was managed to score touchdowns. He had some yardage. He's somebody that you definitely want to look at going forward as a running back because it definitely showed the fact that he got, I forget what that number is, 17 carries, but it was somewhere around 75% of their carries and touches for running back went to him.
You just screwed my chances.
Why?
because I have Gibson in like more than half of my leagues because I thought he was going to be the guy eventually since they drafted him.
Yeah, he did not touch the ball very often in that game against the Eagles, did he? No. So Peyton Barber, if you need a running back, it's definitely somebody to look at.
Especially in a deep league.
Yeah, especially in a deep league. There was a bunch of wide receivers I saw that I looked at, but there was one that I just could not believe had a 1.9% ownership rate. It's Baltimore's number 2 wide receiver, Willie Snead. This week, week 1, I mean, our league's a 16-team league, so some of these guys might be already taken in our league. But in the average 12-man league, 1.9% ownership rate for Willie Snead. 4 catches, 64 yards, a touchdown. I know that offense goes through Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews. They're the main weapons there. But the fact that their number 2 target on offense in wide receivers is owned in only less than 2% of the leagues, it's somebody to pick up. Week 2 with quarterbacks, if you are looking for a quarterback in week 2, it means you failed your NFL draft, and you should just quit immediately.
Or if there was an injury, which unfortunately there wasn't.
Or if somebody like Johnny drafted all the quarterbacks and you need a trade, that's another subject. I'm going to name 2 names that I see that are owned in a very few leagues. I'm not saying you should go pick them up right now. Just put that little star that says watch them just in case, because I'm not going to buy into Scotty Talk Sports Scotty's Bears yet, but Mitchell Trubisky had a hell of a game week 1. He's only owned in 6.5% of the leagues, so you might want to keep an eye on him. And the other one – what was that?
Didn't say anything. Go ahead.
Oh, I heard some feedback there. I don't know. There's some feedback coming on this show. Gardner Minshew. He's owned in 17% of the leagues, threw 3 touchdowns last week. I'm not a fan of his, but on the flip side, those numbers do not lie. They played a pretty solid defense in the Colts last week, and he was still able to put up 3 touchdowns. So keep an eye on him. Any thoughts on those names, guys? Any comments?
There were some good names. I would say the one name I would say I saw that was available in a lot of my leagues, which I tried picking up with James Conner being hurt. I would say the backup running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I would say it was available in a lot of leagues that some you can pick up on the waiver wire, or if hopefully he's probably gone now, but I would say check your league, make sure he's not, depending on how deep your league is.
Yeah, I saw him when I was doing my research. He was around like 35 to 40% ownership at that point, which is still pretty low. But yeah, definitely, if he's available in your league, you go get him right now.
And even a guy like I like James Robinson from Jacksonville. I saw he was available, and he's being scooped up because he's the starter there. But if you're in a deep league and you need somebody on the bench or someone to get, that's the thing with
Jacksonville, especially in the passing game, but also in the running game. Gardner Minshew, for as well as he did in week 1, he targeted 9 different players in the passing game. So there is no way to determine, at least in the passing game aspect of it, who is going to – I saw multiple wide receivers for Jacksonville available and the running backs available. There's no way to judge who his favorite target is going to be yet, because when you spread the ball around that much, if that's something that happens in week 2 and week 3, then there's going to be no way to judge, and you're not going to want any of those guys on your team. But if he keeps up at his touchdown rate, obviously you're going to want him on your team.
But also you have to remember – when you pick up James Robinson, Rykel Armstead is on the COVID list, so he'll be back shortly. So that's another thing.
He'll be back this week or next week, depending on how he recovers from that. So that's going to change everything again. But at least in the wide receiver aspect, you want to stay away from Jacksonville. You just want to keep an eye on Garden, see if he does it. If you're weak at quarterback, maybe stash him on your bench. I don't know. I don't have a quarterback on my bench. I never do. I just wait till the bye week to pick up the best matchup. So then the next thing you want to touch on with fantasy is your daily fantasy. And you want to look at your stacks, the games that you have that you can match up against bad defenses. And I wrote down 4 different teams, but I'm going to go with my favorite one, a guy I was against preseason-wise that looked fantastic in week 1 and also is playing a really weak defense in week 2 is Buffalo and Josh Allen. I will stack Josh Allen.
Coming around on Buffalo.
I'm sorry?
You coming around on Buffalo?
No, not as a team, just as a fantasy aspect. Fantasy-wise, the numbers that they put up, Stephon Diggs, even Zach Moss, their backup running back, John Brown, I will find a way to stack them in almost every one of my daily fantasy leagues this week. I don't know if you guys wrote any teams or names down, before I give any of the other names out or teams out?
I did. I got 3. I got a quarterback, running back, and receiver. Just 3 players that I just took a look at. They're not high names. They're kind of all lower level names, but I have.
Well, you need those low level names in fantasy. You got to find those cheap plays, those guys on DraftKings that are $4,900 in value. It's really important to find those guys.
And one guy I have quarterback is who Scotty really liked, Mitchell Trubisky, playing against the Giants, who does have the strongest defense. And I feel like he can, through the air, he's got weapons. And against that secondary and back end of the Giants, he could put up some points. And he's at a low cost. I think it was $5,900.
Sounds about right.
For the running back, I have Jonathan Taylor. He's a little bit lower as well. I think he's around the 6,000 range. But Marlon Mack tearing his Achilles. They don't really use Nyheim Hines as much, more of a out of the backfield receiving type, third down type of back. So Jonathan Taylor, I can see his load starting to increase. So definitely I can see that could be a good play. And then the receiver, I have Jalen Reagor. So, it's another, I think it's like $4,800. So it's just a throw in there because.
I would recommend staying away from any Eagles at this point, not because you want to not bet your Eagles, but just because we didn't learn anything. If anything, we learned that there's not going to be enough consistency in the team.
Because I
love Taylor. Taylor is a name that I've written down, and I've tried to add him to every single one of my daily lineups this week. He was set. They did mention that he is the starter going into this week with the injury to Marlon Mack. It's his job to lose. He will be starting this week. He is going to get a lot of rushes. He's going to get a lot of targets in the passing game. That is definitely a name that I don't want to give Johnny any credit, but that is a really, really smart name to target in your daily fantasy plays.
The other receiver that I saw, I'm not sure if you have him on your list, was Atlanta's Russell Gage. I think he's like 4,800.
I'm on my list. It's right here at the bottom of the paper, right here.
But he was another guy to take a look at. If you need somebody, if you're stacking your lineup with a couple of high-priced guys, that's a guy that you definitely, especially they're playing against a Dallas Cowboys defense in a secondary that, you have Calvin Ridley and you have Julio Jones.
Well, right there, that's the key right there. So he's on DraftKings, he's a $4,800 value, and everybody expects Julio Jones, Hayden Hurst, Calvin Ridley. At the end of last year, when there was all those injuries on that team, Gage emerged as a great target for Matt Ryan. They developed a little chemistry. And this past week, he had 9. Everybody, I put my money on Matt Ryan and Calvin Ridley as my keys to my stack last week. And I did do decently with them. But Russell Gage had 9 catches for 114 yards last week. And he emerged and showed that he is actually the number 2 target to Julio Jones for Matt Ryan right off the bat. So I love Russell Gage this week against the Cowboys, and I love him going forward.
But who else do you have? Anybody else you got?
I love the Chiefs every week, but I love the Chiefs even more this week against the Chargers. So if you're going to stack a team and you're going to go find a couple really cheap plays, spend as much money as you can on the Chiefs, on Clyde Edwards-Helaire, on Patrick Mahomes. It's a great game to play. And I love the Green Bay game, Aaron Rodgers. You can even skip Devontae Adams and save that money and go for Scantling and the other guy, Lazar. I love that game against Detroit. So they're the other games I look at this week. But again, Buffalo and the Chiefs are the 2 teams I'm focused on stacking-wise the most this week.
And, we can lead into talking about our You Like the Locks and how we did last week. Jeff, you had the standings of what our records were, correct?
Yeah, I'll say me and you went 2-1, and Phil went 1-2. So,
hold on, but just I went 1-2 on the Uleka Locks, but on FanDuel Sportsbet, I won $92 last week. Just so you know. So I actually put my money out there and won on the other bets.
But you also were 8-8 in our NFL picks.
Yeah,
too.
There was no money on that.
And no spread either.
On the line, results speak. I turned $40 into $92 last week online. So that's all that matters is when the money's on the line.
No, that's true. I'm going to throw you some of my money. You can make me some money too.
Go for it.
But I'll start out. with my 3 picks on who I have. I have Atlanta plus 5.5. I think they're going to give Dallas a very close game. If they wind up losing, I think it's going to be like a 3-point game. I think it's going to be a very close game, which they could actually pull it out as well. I have Buffalo at the favorite minus 5.5. I could see them kind of running away against Miami. And I have New Orleans at minus 6.5. I know they play at Vegas. Vegas is opening up that new stadium, but I just feel like I know they don't have Michael Thomas, but I still think that their firepower on offense is still going to get them the win. I think they win by at least 7 to 10 points. Phil?
Yeah. Me? I mean, my 3 picks this week, just for the Eureka locks. These aren't my, where I'm throwing my money. They're just my Eureka locks. I got the Bills against Miami also at minus 5.5. I actually may throw a couple bucks on that one. I like that game a lot.
You said you're not throwing money on these.
I'm not, but I do like that one a lot. I have to wait till I see all the different bets, all the parlays out there. The money goes in different directions depending on promotions and stuff. I won't lie. Most of the money I won was on a promotion that gave me the Rams at plus 36. So that was where most of my money went, and that's why I won so much money, is because there's a promotion on that. So I got the Cardinals at minus 6.5 against Washington. Love that game. That's a lock for sure. And the Chiefs minus 8.5. The Chiefs are just going to crush most of their opponents this week. So that I think is a pretty easy basic play right there.
I'll say I'm right there with you on that one. I'll say I have the Chiefs minus 8.5 over the Chargers. Tyrod Taylor, I'm sorry, he's not going to be able to compete with Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, and Andy Reid's offense. So, that, like you said, I understand it's a divisional matchup, and sometimes these games get pretty heated and can be close games. I don't see that one being one of them. My second one is Steelers minus 6 over the Broncos. I don't know. I'm just not a big fan of the Broncos, so I would say, and Steelers, I feel are going to be clicking a little bit. So I feel that they'll at least cover by a touchdown and beat the Broncos. And then I have the 49ers minus 7 over the Jets. The 49ers are an angry football team after losing to the Cardinals last week. The Jets are absolutely garbage. So I would say the defending NFC champs, I feel, are going to come out on this one and unleash all their frustration on them.
I thought about that game when I was doing the picks, and that kind of scared me because of all the injuries that San Fran has, and their whole secondary is basically
the Jets are garbage.
I understand.
Le'Veon Bell's already hurt. Sam Darnold, not Sam Darnold that coming out of college. He's a bust.
Yeah, the Jets are going to be a train wreck as long as what's his name is their head coach. So
Mr. Eyes.
The Eyes, the man that does something. I don't know what he does, but no. The 49ers, I did write that down as a potential play also. So I really do like that one also.
And before we make our Eagles pick, I just want to, thank a couple people and who's retweeted us, supported us, helped us. One is Last Out Media. We are streaming on their website, Last Out Media. Is it Last Out Network?
LastOutMediaNetwork.com.
And you can follow
that
prepared. I had it written down, but it didn't. I didn't think it was 100% right.
Start a podcast as well. Make sure to hit them up. They have a great professional company there with a lot of great guys that make your podcasting life so much easier. They handle all the production, all the recording. All you have to do is prepare for your show. So make sure, if you're looking to get into this type of business or just for fun, make sure to hit them up. John and Rob are great dudes, and they do a great job.
We're streaming on Wednesdays and Fridays at 10 a.m. You can listen on their website. And you can follow, like I said, you can follow them at Last Out Media. Yeah, a couple other guys. Tony Cotillo at tcotillo23. Great guy. He also runs Heat Ratio Sports. You can follow them at Heat Ratio Sports. He's always got live content going, fantasy shows, everything. Great guy, awesome guy.
He makes. I feel like I know my fantasy. But Tony, Jigsaw, whatever you want to call him, that show that they do on fantasy, that's top notch. That's where you win your fantasy leagues, is by listening to them.
Yeah, getting his insight. Also, the Athletes at Athletes Hub, great website. Phil writes for them. They share a lot of our stuff. They're very, very supportive of the All About the Birds with any Eagles news, always to pump our tag in there, which we are so appreciative of. And also want to give a shout out to Scotty at Scotty Drowned, and also his show at ST Philly Sports 1. He's come on a few times. Phil goes on his show as a co-host, and he's an absolute awesome guy. And like with All About the Birds, you can see all our content and everything on our website at AATBirds.com. Bunch of new content coming up. All our writers are writing some tremendous pieces, and it's not just Eagles. We got some NFC East stuff about the divisional opponents. I know Jason put something about the Lions because he is a Lions fan, and I feel for him a little bit reading that. And
also a lot of gambling and
Yep. Speaking of Jason and our new writer Josh, the three of us, we're going to start putting together a regular weekly show just dedicated to fantasy, just dedicated to gambling. We're still trying to work out the details of the exact time. We might try to throw one together tomorrow night. Time still is up in the air, but stay tuned and focused on the All About the Bird networks, because it will be out there at some point and regularly, a show just talking about fantasy and gambling, things that we're all the three of us, Josh, Jeff, and I, are all really passionate about.
And, you can also follow all three of us. You can follow Jeff at Jeff Warner NFL. You can follow Phil at Beard of Knowledge. You can follow myself at JohnnyU9322. And you can follow All About the Birds on all the platforms at AATBirds. And I also want to give a shout out to Ron Jaworski, who I always put tons of videos and everything. And I just, really appreciate everything. Him and Coffee, his media guy, what they do, and for promoting All About the Birds and putting them out there on social media. It's we want to say our thanks to them, and we appreciate everything that they do. Exactly.
Well, and make sure to listen to Jaws. He is live every Wednesday. He does post the live video of his radio broadcast on all his social media platforms. So if for some reason you're not in this area and don't pick up one of the Philly stations, you can follow his show, who he had Fred X on today on his show. So you can follow that on his Ron Jaworski Facebook page and Twitter page as well.
All righty, so let's get into these predictions. All righty, who wants to go first? I think
lead
Jeff
the way, boss.
All right, I'll lead the way. So for my prediction, I think it's gonna be a close game. I do see the Eagles winning 24-20. I don't see a collapse happening. I don't see that. I just feel like with Miles Sanders, he's healthy. Lane Johnson's back. I think they're able to run the ball. I think they're able to control the clock, and I think they're able to sneak out a win on Sunday to go to 1-1.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go next because I think Jeff's going to be Mr. Negative and go. I think Jeff's going to go against the Eagles, so I'm going to go for the Eagles too. I'm going to go. Last time we played the Rams, we won in 2018, 30-23. So I'm going to go this year. I was going to write down 30-23, but I looked up the score and saw it was the same. I'm like, all right, I got to change it. So the Eagles win 30-24 against the Rams. Okay. I had to switch it up a little bit there.
Change it up a little bit.
They're 1-1 going into next week against the Bengals. We got that.
I think Jeff pulled a book out. This isn't good. He's going to
I'll say you're unfortunately wrong, Phil. I'll say the Eagles, their backs are up against the wall. This is a must-win football game. They have the Rams number the last couple of years. I believe winning 7 of the last 8.
Look at him with the papers.
They're 23-9 at home in the regular season, which is 5th best home winning percentage in the NFL since 2016. He has captured the 4 straight victories and home openers since he became coach in 2016. I just can't see this team dropping the 0-2. The Eagles, I feel, pull this out. A big defensive stand at the end. They win. I feel. I'll say I was gonna say somewhere to Johnny 24-20, but I'll go 27-23. I'll say Rams are driving down the field, and Eagles have a big defensive stand to prevent them from going to the end zone.
A big kick from Darius Slay.
There we go.
Love
it. So yeah, we'll all three, go Birds. I would say hopefully we're talking about victory Sunday as the clock hits 0. Make sure to tune into the All About the Birds post-game live show. Me, Phil, and hopefully Johnny will be involved in this one. Hopefully talking about an Eagles victory and hopefully not talking about the season being over on Sunday.
But also, halftime of the game, one of us will be on to just give a quick 5-minute breakdown of what we see as well. So also keep tuned for that. Phil did a great job last week doing that. But
I will not do another post-game show again because it's my fault that the Eagles lost. Because I did the post-game show and then they blew the halftime show. They blew it because of my halftime show. So I was too positive on that halftime show. So I'm gonna be done with that for a little while.
But with that, the only thing that we like to do, we like to thank everyone for watching. And go Birds.
Go Birds.
Go Birds.